Quite heated in here. Robert, if you hear me, I think I'll need a stopwatch moving forward because we have very limited time and everybody wants to say everything possible. And before we finish off with the issue of UNGA, Mheshimiwa Ken, of course, you were mentioned as being in the Budget Committee and the Education Committee.
Yes.
I mean, how feasible is it?
Yes.
This issue of, very quickly so that we move on to...
I think it is very feasible. If you want to invest in people fast, you will invest in people first, and you will make sure free education is done. The Honorable Matangi told us that he wants to give Jubilee credit for free primary education. Fact of the matter is children are still paying for books, they're paying for uniforms, they're paying for lunch programs, with all these hidden fees at free primary education. Now we're talking about a policy of free secondary education. Free secondary education is a promise that both sides want to fulfill. And it will be a very huge promise. And our Senator Matangi, I'm happy to inform him and all Kenyans the fact that half of Kenyan children don't go to government secondary schools because there's no government capacity. So anyone who's going to have to invest free secondary education by September or by January next year, I'm glad we've put it clearly, it shall be implemented under the Jubilee government and under the NASA government, must come up with a PPP partnership to make sure that the children who are not in government schools and are equally Kenyan children will be able to get that capitation of 15,000 shillings for day schools or 50,000 shillings for boarding schools. We need a legal framework that must be passed very quickly to make sure that happens. But the fact of the matter is, and the media will bear me truth, the historical evidence there, at the 100th anniversary of Kisii High School in June 8th, 2014, the President promised that the children would go to Form 1 for free on January 2015. It did not happen. The promises you make to people, especially to children, should be kept, and it is immoral to make a promise to children who are in class 8 to believe that year they would go to secondary school. Number two, we made a promise to all children in 2013 that the class 1s in 2014 would get laptops. They have not got them. So that's another promise made to children. And this is the reason I'm saying don't vote for Jubilee. They will lie and break promises even to your innocent children. Number two is free secondary education.
Number 3.
Finally, if you implement free secondary education, I tell you why it is an urgent issue and must be done. All the money that our parents are spending on children to go to secondary school. If you have 2 children and they're paying 50,000 shillings each for secondary school, that's 100,000 shillings that a poor family in Kibra, in Kiandutu, in your county could spend in another business and boosting the economy. So let us have the government seriously invest in public education and public goods for our children and allow the parents saving an income to boost the economy and spend it on other economic activities.
Fair enough. Mheshimiwa Kirwa, you were once a cabinet secretary in charge of agriculture, to be precise. This UNGA issue seems like it's becoming more of a campaign issue than a genuine Kenyan problem, even as Kenyans are failing to get stocks in the shopping counters, even as shopkeepers are making a loot. Apparently 2 of them were jailed somewhere, were arrested somewhere in Kajiado and even fined for selling maize flour at more than 140 shillings. Is it politics or what is it?
Well, I was cabinet minister, not cabinet secretary.
Cabinet minister.
Yeah, cabinet minister. The other issue that is more fundamental is that harvesting in Kenya goes on throughout the year. So when you're harvesting in one region, you expect another harvest 3 months down the road, all the way. And my contention, and it's very clear, is that in June, when the deputy president was saying that, there was prediction from weatherman that there was going to be depressed harvest at the end of the year. In November, when we were harvesting the bulk of the maize in the North Rift, National Cereals and Produce Board, for very stringent conditions that they produce, they are only able to capture 800,000 bags of maize, leaving 8 million bags of maize to go to Southern Sudan through Uganda, through World Food Program and other agencies that were buying maize. So this shortage is partly out of depressed harvest and also partly out of mishandling of the farmers' issues. The same year, when the deputy president was talking, maize in some parts of the country were not doing well because we are given fake fertilizer from National Cereals and Produce Board, and 22 officers were arrested. This year we have the problem of armyworm, and the prediction is clear that we might lose 50 billion billion shillings on the maize aspect. So we would expect the government to look forward. But finally, on that particular issue, I agree with Ndugu Babage that it is important that we think of long term. This country has the capacity through National Cereals and Produce Board to store up to 18 million bags of maize. Now they have less than 1 million bags of maize in their storage. This is where the problem is.
Bwana Karanja Kabage, does the solution lie with politicians, or where does the solution lie? Bwana Matangi said do not expect politicians to find a solution.
You know, when I talked about thinking strategically and long term, this country has human resource capacity to be able to look at not only the issue of maize, but all facets of our life and think ahead. That is not based on the political exigencies of today. And I want to say that our country is very blessed. If you look at the geography of our country, we have such diversity of geographical climate that this country is capable of planning and being able to provide for the needs of the Kenyan people. But we have to sit down and look at things from a very from a perspective of not politics, but of our sovereignty as a people and the future of our people. To me, that is most important. But let me talk about the issue of giving people free education, whether it's secondary, whether it's primary, whether it's a tertiary level, whether it's the university level. Now, the background at which we should look at this issue is the capacity of the country. If you look at the economy of our country today, give or take, not more than $65 billion, the gross national product of our country. And even if you say we have what you call third economy, and say it is even $85 billion. Now that amount of money is so little to be able to give not promises but actual
implementation,
free education. And I'm very surprised that my brother here, Ken, is talking about, or NASA is talking about by September they are going to provide free secondary education. First, if we are going to provide free secondary education, let me tell you, this country will go into massive borrowing or such a level of dependency on aid that it will be very, very dangerous for this country.
How does that fit, considering the talk that 30% of the economy, the budget goes to facing corruption?
I don't care what anybody says. But if you look at physical needs of our country and monetary needs of our country, and this is where we need people to be very well educated in this particular issue. And I know Musalia Mudavadi, whom I know personally, has been a finance minister. Among the people in the NASA group, the only person that I can trust to think financially, it is Musalia Mudavadi. Because he was a minister for finance at a most crucial time in 1993. And he knew what we went through under the IMF and World Bank conditionality.
That's the time of structural adjustment.
Let me tell you, yeah, and we are heading there if we are not very careful as a country. So I want to ask the politicians from across the board, please face the Kenyans and tell them the truth. Don't start promising that we are going to dish out this, we are going to dish out this, because that is not going to be possible. And I'll give you an example.
A final one.
Yes. If you take Venezuela, today Venezuela is one of the richest countries today in the world, potentially, because they have a lot of oil, but they cannot even sell it today and get the price that they want. Mandela and his former president, they were promising people things, and today that country is going through hell. And if we are not careful as a country, we're going to get there. Look at Greece, the same way. So I'm very concerned about the issue of NASA. telling the public things. Finally, let me put it this way. Finally,
the distance between September and January.
There is intellectual dishonesty here, because Jubilee has promised the same thing of education. It bothers him when we say we will give free secondary education to our children and invest in our children, and we want to do it quickly, and we will see what.
Let me finish my story.
Okay, finish it quickly so that the other.
Yeah, I think it's important. What I said, the political divide, both sides. You get what I mean? And I'm saying, if we are not careful as a country, we are going to lose our sovereignty as a people. Because if you look at what happened to Greece, they went to free spending. At the end of the day, they are today the crying baby of Europe. Now this country has come a long way since Mwai Kibaki took over the government, where we have been able as a country to steer our physical and monetary management.
I hope that's the final statement.
Yeah, so that I am saying, let us be very careful
not to make promises.
Not make promises which we cannot keep because we want to get to power.
And that is both sides of the divide.
And he's not being.
I thought he had already made his point, and I was going to reply to some of the things he said, because
let me make my point.
Just to the gentleman that you are.
Well, I mean, but you give him a chance to say to tell his views. He went to Kabage, and I need to reply to what he said, so he cannot have a double take. I mean, it's only fair. It has got to be fair.
Allow me to moderate this.
Yes.
Fine. But in fairness,
it's all right.
And I'll say it very quickly. Jubilee has taken us from 2.4 trillion in debt to 4 trillion in debt within 4 years. That has to be said. And we have to ask, what do we have to show for this debt? We have a standard gauge railway to Nairobi that we will pay for inter-debt. Remember? We have young people outside Parliament who are lining up last week for 7 days, for 6, 7, 8 hours per day. Senator will bear me witness, looking for jobs. Who's issuing tickets at the terminus in Mombasa? Who's issuing tickets? Chinese people. You're telling me qualified Kenyan graduates with MBAs, some from Kiambu, some from Kirinyaga, some from Kisumu, cannot sit and issue train tickets, and Chinese people have to be here. So when we talk about sovereignty, we have to face it squarely. But I really think it's time to invest in our people, and when we are taking debt, let us be very careful. It's a worthy national conversation, but let us not hide that under the Jubilee government we have taken debt from 2.4 trillion to
so you're agreeable on
4 years. Yes, but it does not hide the fact.
Okay,
it's all Jubilee responsible for.
Senator, a number of issues here. Politicians making promises that will take the country the Venezuela way, the Greece way, from both sides of the divide.
Yes. Charles, I think actually you see. The two gentlemen, especially Ken, has made quite a number of allegations, and that's what I was saying. It will be good. It will be good when they make.
When they make an
I wish you just fine. Yeah, sure. That's what I'm doing, but I will do that strategically. You know, you've asked me a question. What I'm saying is, when they raise an issue, it is important that we have both sides at that time, so that they don't pile this and that and that and that. Yes, I mean that's the way to go in debate and in discussion. Now, first I wanted to take Ken just quickly. I don't want to really challenge him on his own facts, especially being a member, like you said, of the two committees in budget and in education. But it's important that when you come to the platform, you come with your facts right, and especially where you say you participate, because for example, I hope in your budget committee and also in education committee, you are aware that in the year 2013-2014, the budget for education was 30 billion. In the year 2014-2015, that budget was increased to 40 billion. That's a fact, and it is done in the two committees that you sit in. And when it was being done, it was being done with a clear intention that time for government to start providing free tuition and other incentives in education. And if you look at the progress we have made since the first time when we read a budget of 180 billion when Moi was exiting, to now when we are reading a budget of 2.6 trillion, that growth in between within that span of less than 20 years tells you that expansion can accommodate. And I want to remind you also, Ken, when you challenge that the president said in 2014
that he would be giving free education the following year.
In January 2016.
Came and went.
I don't know whether maybe you are part of the team that walked out of Parliament when he was giving his State of the Nation address in 2014.
Did that stop him from delivering
in 2014 and 2015 in the State of the Nation address, he said that in the next 5 years, and you can check your fact check, he said in the next 5 years we shall start providing free secondary education. That is a statement on record in Parliament.
You know,
and so
we'll just play the clip from what he said.
If you look at and then please,
so some of the things the president said.
Look at what he said in Parliament in the State of the Nation address, and you can count here.
So can we say the Kisi one was a roadside declaration?
So I mean,
not binding.
See what he said that he was. I hope you still be playing the clip sooner than later. But what we have on record in Parliament is that he said in the next 5 years the government or the country will be getting free secondary education. And so lastly, let me summarize by really putting my crown on what I'm saying. That you see, the problem we have had in this country on addressing various issues, and I want to back what Karanja Kabage was saying, is because we have let politicians with very short-term interests in leadership to be the ones who dictate the course of the country in policy shaping. And that is the wrong way to go. Because we have to let politicians play politics and close it at that. You know, because the politicians can speak on behalf of the people to help shape policy and to help make law. But if we let politicians, and especially I'm very concerned with what has been happening in NASA, really, and the kind of...
What precisely?
I mean, see, like Karanja was saying, them jumping on the podium there and start saying that we'll start providing free education within this date. What do they know? In the first place, they have no plan to do that.
How do you know that? How do you know that? This is NASA, not you.
Sure, but what you would ask them in the first place is what have they done in the first place to make that a reality? You know, you have
what
to
has NASA done? Now that
you have to show a path to speak about a future.
I will take your cue.
Sure.
If an issue is raised, we handle it immediately.
Please,
NASA is here.
Yes,
NASA is here.
Let them tell us.
Simply, it's a platform that we envisage possibility of free secondary education, and we know where to get the resources. One is to seal off the taps, which is about 35% of stealing.
Yes.
We seal them off. And when we seal them off, it is more money than we need for free secondary education. Number two, look at it. We are really pretending here. If Senator is talking about free secondary education in January, and we are talking about it in September, what is the difference? There is no budget in between. The only thing that we need to do is to switch off the tap of stealing, and the money will be there and will be provided for, and we're going to implement it.
Fair enough. There is the issue that has been raised about entrusting politicians with solutions to our problems, and I'm looking at page 7 of the standard.
Why do people go for elections to elect their leaders?
Why don't we just have a dictatorship or a monarchy?
In the Constitution, it is very clear, and as a lawyer, you can tell you better that this Constitution that we have 2010, we said we, the people of Kenya, give to ourselves and future generations this Constitution of Kenya, and the sovereignty of the people lies in that Constitution. We donate to the president, we donate to member of parliament, we donate to senator. That sovereignty to the extent that they are going to play within the rules of the game plan. So we cannot run away from politicians.
Politicians and the most effective
politicians are leaders.
You know, what you need to do is to understand what is your role when you go to
making a point.
Charles, you are a journalist. Tomorrow, if you are elected the MP for Kibra, when he goes for Senate, you are going to be a politician, and therefore the people of Kibra will have given you the mandate to represent them in Kibra on all issues.
Yeah. You never know. Mheshimiwa Ken Okoth has decided for me. I get these terms, and I don't know if you gentlemen do too. Page 7 of the standard. A section of MPs from Northeastern have threatened to arm locals if the government fails to improve security in the region. They gave the state 2 months to end terror The MPs who are named here say they would be compelled to purchase guns from Somali to protect their people. Bwana Karanja Kabage.
Okay. First of all,
how does that statement sound to you?
I'll tell you something, and this is really where the politicians also need to be very careful. First of all, if you want to define a country,
and he wants to be one.
Yeah.
He is one already.
If you want to define a country, there are 5 criteria. Criteria number 1, do you have a defined population? Criteria number 2, do you have defined boundaries? Criteria number 3, do you have capacity to maintain law and order?
Provide security, that is.
Yeah. Number 4, do you have capacity to honor international obligations? And number 5, do you have capacity to maintain territorial integrity? Those are the 5 criteria under international public law that defines what is a country. Now, the issue that is under challenge today is number 3, capacity to maintain law and order. Individuals in this country, call them whatever you want to call them, they cannot claim they are going to purchase guns from a neighboring country so that they can arm their people. You know what they have done? They are actually saying they are traitors to this country. Because gangs, the only authorized authority in this country, under the law, under the constitution, is the government in power. That is the only institution that what is called they have the capacity, they have the authority for their monopoly of what is called technology of violence.
Yeah.
It is the government. Now anybody else claiming they have technology of violence
without government
that
approval,
is not legal, they actually should be charged.
They are criminals.
They are committing a criminal offense, because it is so serious. In fact, I'm so scared that they can say we are going to go to Somalia and buy guns and arm our people. What does this mean? That as a country, what about the territorial integrity of this country, which is under the armed forces of this country? The armed forces of this country is supposed to maintain the territorial integrity. Now, what does it mean? That they are now an army unto itself. So they need legal advice to understand that, wait a minute, you are already betraying yourself and the country, and you are actually committing a treasonable offense.
Mheshimiwa, these are people whose powers have been donated to them by Wananchi. They are saying Wananchi, who they represent, do not have security.
Well, but the biggest donee is the President of the Republic of Kenya, who is the Chief Executive. And the way Mheshimiwa Kabage has said is very true. The only person who can bring the semblance of authority and security is the President of the Republic. Now the challenge here is not even with the government. There is a crack on national cohesion, and that's why there is this problem of insecurity in Kenya. Because ask yourself, why is it going on all over in this northern corridor? And for your information, this northern corridor has more than 70,000 illegal arms.
Small arms.
Small arms. It's only that they don't have the bullets. Otherwise, we are in serious trouble. They don't need to go to Somalia. They just need to mobilize the same from within. But now the main problem is, what are we going to do with the issue of Al-Shabaab? We just need to improve, to mop up the issue, because our boys are dying every day. Some of it gets to the media, but largely, many of them die and the media does not capture. Every day. And you see now they have become so selective that when an international Red Cross or these other ones are passing, they don't blow them. But when they see a security vehicle, they have a remote control, they blow them. It is no longer the ones that you plant on the road.
They're like throwing a challenge at them.
They are throwing a challenge at the very security that we have.
Senator Matangi, is this an indication of failure to provide security?
Well, I think
donors of power?
Well, let me start by acknowledging what Karanja Kabagi said, that in addition to what I had said earlier, that now you can see the vindication that once you trust politicians to be everything, then you lose it, because and that's what I wanted to say, that politicians must understand that yes, they have that power donated to them by the people. For them to listen to them, talk to them, engage them, then go to where they're supposed to go and make laws that will be implemented to help those people. That is the way forward. But you see, once you have a politician who goes to talk to people, come back to the House of Parliament, from Parliament goes to the office of CES, and then they want to be everything, and then go back and say we are going to import arms. First, that's illegal. Secondly, if you're talking about security, we have to be honest about ourselves, and especially in that area of northern Kenya, because this has been, we would almost call it a historical problem. Remember, from the days of the Shifta War up to all the talk about the Ugali massacre, up to the fights we've had, and now the challenge we have with Al-Shabaab, and acknowledging that we have a long porous border with all those countries, from Somalia to Ethiopia, and there have been challenges. If you go to Turkana today and you go near the border with Ethiopia, there are serious challenges of insecurity and other places. So, as a country, would need to be saying, one, our solution does not lie with having our own people armed lawlessly without any restriction, because that's been the challenge that we've had. You see what's been happening in Pokot, in Samburu and other places. The way forward is what the government has been doing, ensuring that there is organized, choreographed, proper, institutionalized provision of security. Remember, the Jubilee government purchased and provided more than 2,000 vehicles to security forces, including some armed personal vehicles. Carriers. It has not been enough, we must acknowledge that. It's not enough. We have a long way to go to provide adequate security to our people. And I think what we need to be saying is that there still is a lot much more. I mean, we cannot say we are safe or anyone is safe until the last Kenyan who is on our land and pledges allegiance to our flag is safe.
Mheshimiwa Kenokot, how does this situation fit with the famous call, your security starts with you?
I think there's a certain disconnect between, again, the politicians in Nairobi who he is willing to condemn and the reality on the ground. And I speak here from the perspective of the interest of our loyal, courageous, professional, dedicated security agents, whether they be police on the frontiers, whether they be military outside in places like El Ade and other places. I think the government is shortchanging them, and I'll read from the Jubilee Manifesto so that the Honorable Wamatangi doesn't accuse me of making things up. Page 16 of the 2013 Jubilee Manifesto. I'll read you just two things that Jubilee promised to do that they haven't done. Jubilee said they would create a new border security force to defend the nation's borders and provide additional security support to border counties like Pokot and other places. That border police force has not been created. You have the executive arm to implement that vision. They have not implemented. Number two, and this is a more pertinent one, we're talking about what's happening in the Northeast. Jubilee said it would rationalize security budgets and subject procurement of security equipment and services to public scrutiny and oversight mechanisms and ensure competitive bidding so as to promote transparency, eliminate wastage, and guarantee quality and value for public funds. Large security contracts shall be subjected to scrutiny by the relevant parliamentary committees and oversight bodies, including a very good promise that Jubilee made there is in one of the other manifesto items is local by Kenyan approach, so that local maintenance to make sure that our security money circulates amongst Kenyan companies and stimulates Kenyan economy and Kenyan job growth. Those two things Jubilee has not done well. Look at the armored personnel carriers that were bought. There is no documentation to prove there was competitive bidding and oversight, that we got value for money, that even the contractor, and we're told when this equipment was delivered to GSC in Ruaraka, was asked, you as a contractor, you say this is armored personnel vehicles and they are up to standard. If you get in there and we test shooting at them, would you agree? The contractor said no. Now we've put them out in the field. We've seen them fail in Mandera. we've seen that set of equipment, and to be patriotic, it's in the public media. Look at the pictures that was there just 2 weeks ago when the one was blown up, and it was all bent up like a cheap mkokoteni in Gikomba that has been hit by a matatu. So you have to ask yourself, how can we buy expensive equipment and then trust our soldiers, go put your life in line, yet the equipment cannot do the job it's meant to do? So I think there's a failure in there. So I think the motorization, the increase in leased equipment for our police to move around is making a difference in some urban areas. You can see more patrols. That is good. But really, the corruption is ruining things, because the tendering means we're not getting value for our money. There is no seriousness about getting it. And you'll see it even with the aircraft. We need to buy good aircraft that can support our ground forces, whether they're doing local policing or international. But we've seen we're buying the cheapest.
Very, very serious issues here that we will need to dissect further on. Security is one issue that can never be politicized, indeed, because it's about the life of the Kenyans who are the owners of this country. We are coming back onto that after this short commercial break.